Day. This is turning out to be like a 2-week process, but sometimes that's how it goes.
Alright, what's up everybody? Dave here, Stances Everything, and I apologize for this video taking longer to come out than usual. We're about 2 weeks since my last video, and honestly, what I was doing this week just took me a little bit longer than expected. So what I was working on this week, just because of the way that timing and everything worked out, I had the ambitious goal of completing my transmission tunnel rather quickly. My transmission tunnel was under my free stuff column, and I'm going to splice in some video of me working on it and realizing that it's not free. I had to go out and get some metal to do it. So unfortunately, any way I slice it, I just do not have enough metal to make this work. This is the first time that I'm shooting an intro after I've kind of done everything. So this video is a little choppy. I apologize, but I thought I'd reshoot an intro just explaining why things took so long. But without further ado, here we go into me making my transmission tunnel. Alright, welcome back to the channel. Dave here, Stances Everything. We're back in the garage again. It is a Tuesday night, I believe. And unfortunately this week, once again, I do not have a ton of time. I was again racing out of province last weekend, and I'm racing again this weekend in province, but about 3 hours away. So I don't have a ton of time in the garage. I got about 2 nights. So I was thinking that I still do want to get a video out. So I went and looked at my board, and I kind of went to looking at the things that I can do. Can't mount my bed by myself really right now, and with the truck in the air and a couple of things that I need to do, it doesn't make sense to mount it yet. I don't have my e-brake cables, so I can't do those. It really doesn't make sense to do any seat stuff right now because I do want to put at least lap belts in, and I might as well do that when I have the seat belt pulled out. I don't feel like painting the drive shaft right now, plus it's super humid. Drive shaft cross member, that waits on the e-brake cable. Install hood, again, I don't have everything that I need quite now. I have a couple things out to powder coat, and I can't do that by myself. And basically there's just a whole bunch of stuff that today isn't going to be the right time to do it, except for my drive shaft and trans tunnel. I have never built a drive shaft and trans tunnel before. I don't know how this is going to go, but I figure maybe I can tack a couple of things together and get a good start on it in this video. So this might be part 1 of making a drive shaft tunnel, because I think I'm only going to get it tacked together today. I don't think I'm going to get it finished. But something is better than nothing, so let's show you what I'm working with. On the inside of my truck, you can see that I did have to make very minor firewall modifications to fit my 4L60 transmission. I know that hole is a little bit wonky. I am going to try and just go in with a finer tool and clean that up a little bit. Before I drop the truck off for either paint or getting things sorted out, I just have to cut that open a little bit more. I need to do it rather quickly, and I only have an angle grinder and a Dremel, so that was angle ground into this kind of position that you see it right now. Regardless, this is my factory transmission cover. As you can see, it kind of fits. I obviously don't need any of this section here, and I've got a hole to fill in here. What I think I can do is actually maybe cut it right at that rust spot there, so I retain these 2 mounting holes, and then put a new piece of metal in here. I actually have this new piece of metal. I don't really know what I bought it for. It is brand new, and I might as well use it. But before I do that, what I think I'm going to do is sort of trace this whole thing out of cardboard maybe, and play with some shapes to see if I can kind of get something to cover that hole there, and then transfer all of that to metal. Like I said, I've never done this before, so let's get into it and see how we get on. So I think I can approach this now in a couple of different ways. The first would be to sort of measure from this break here, which is represented by that break in the cardboard here, up to the center of the arc, and then sort of draw a circle like that, knowing that it is going to need a bit of a bend in it to make it work. So that is one method to do that. And actually thinking if I'm going to measure that, I would probably go like a ½ inch out with my cut, just to kind of compensate with the bend. So because this is cardboard, I think I'm going to try that and see how that works for me. And then if we get close there, the challenging part will be is transferring that to metal. But luckily I do have half of transmission tunnel already, so I won't be able to bend it at a break, really. Curve it and a break, that's kind of a bit complex. So I wonder if the best thing for me to do is to do this in kind of 2 pieces. One piece being this flat cover,
and then the next one being a bit of a cone that kind of goes onto everything. That might be the ticket here, to do it in 2 pieces. So let's maybe cut this, line it all up where it needs to be right before that break, and then work on the cone portion. Alright, so what I ended up doing was I had my existing transmission tunnel obviously like on the floor, and I measured from the edge to one of the cuts, an edge to the other cut, and then I used this pail lid to draw a semicircle. It's going to be a little bit bigger, just because that was the best way to have this circle sort of be neat. So I'm going to cut this out now with an X-Acto knife. I'm going to keep this because I can probably use this as a template for my cone, which I'll do in some other piece of cardboard or maybe some light sheet metal. Lay this all back down and see what everything looks like. Alright, I'm sure you've all heard the expression before, if you squint, it's mint. If you squint, that is mint. So I made that cone. This cardboard is a little bit too thick to emulate what it would be like with this curved. So I'm going to find some thinner cardboard, and then what I'm going to do is sort of sort all that out with some thinner cardboard for the cone. But I do think I have enough to kind of get the bottom of the trans hump sorted out. So let me cut this out of this piece of metal, the piece that we're going to put in. I'm going to measure this up against the existing sort of floor pan, and then tomorrow I will try and grab some sheet metal. I'll bring that sort of template with me, make sure I can get something big enough and that'll bend nicely. And then hopefully we can pick this up tomorrow where I do bend that cone out, and we can at least set it on there and see how it is before I weld it in. And then I think that might be a decent place to stop this video, since, like I said, don't have a ton of time. I got to get this sort of filmed and ready to edit within sort of basically about 4 to 6 hours work. So let's get this bottom piece sorted out first.
Okay, so unfortunately, any way I slice it, I just do not have enough metal to make this work.
So originally what I was thinking was I could cut sort of this piece here and then graft on some more metal. Unfortunately, that doesn't give me anywhere near enough, and what I have left over here is too narrow to fill that gap. And then honestly, like cutting and welding that all in, it's gonna look like crap. And then I was like, okay, maybe this piece can be used for the cone. Unfortunately, the cone is just slightly too big. Now, I was really generous with this because I'm not sure how much material I'm going to use with bending it, but I really don't want to cut this out and then realize it's too short and be stuck anyway. So I'm going to have to buy some more material. Kind of bring this cardboard with me to work tomorrow, bring it to the hardware store, measure it up against some pieces of metal, and then hopefully either we get 1 or 2 pieces of metal that can kind of get this job done efficiently. The one good thing about all of this mess is that I'm going to end up replacing this in its entirety instead of trying to reuse this, which is good because painting this, getting it all ready for paint would have been a giant pain in the ass anyway. And I think one solid piece, and then with this cone sort of tacked on top of it, some seam sealer, some paint, I think it'll be pretty solid, all said and done.
Like I said, I don't have a ton of time this week, so I'm going to try and save a little bit of time by hopping onto the computer now and editing a little bit of this so that I can do a little bit more work on Thursday, and then hopefully come up and finish editing it sort of after I do all of that. Hopefully it works and you see a video on Friday like usual. If not, the video will probably come late on Sunday, but we'll see how we make out. So I'll catch you in the next cut with a little bit more material. Day 2 on building a transmission tunnel for my 1951 GMC.
And I have picked up a sheet of metal that I can use to cut for the cardboard templates we made yesterday. So I'm going to put this on the bench. We are going to cut out this first piece, which is kind of the easier of the 2 pieces. And then I've got some thinner cardboard so I can really mock out the tunnel part of it. And I don't know if I'm going to do that tonight.
It is 11:10 right now, and I have to be up at like 6:30 tomorrow. Obviously, I could push this really far, but I'm also a camp counselor this week, and I'm not gonna have the patience if I stay up late. So
let me put this on the bench, put the camera somewhere.
We'll get this cut out really nice, get it fitting really nicely, and then start playing with some cardboard.
Alright, so all of that took way longer than I thought it would take, but we've got a panel in that we can start working from. It's a little rough, so don't be shocked. So this is what we've got in now. It fits nicely sort of in where the previous panel was, and you can see that I started to make my cone, and then because my cardboard template had more flex in it than I would have liked, I kind of wasn't able to build my cone before I cut out this area. You can see that I'm kind of sneaking up on it because I don't want it to be too large if I can't fit a cone in there nicely. So my next step is actually going to be roughing out a cone so I know how much of this to remove. I don't want to remove too much more yet. Obviously, you know, this is pretty narrow. I don't want to remove too much more yet though until I know I can fit a cone in here kind of the way that I want it to fit. I don't think I've made any sort of mistakes here that I can't rectify, because really if this is where the cone is going to sort of sit, we're going to come down to about here anyway, and this is all going to come out and we'll be able to cover that. Kind of like what I had here originally, but as you can see there's a bunch of gaps and stuff that I kind of got to finagle with and figure out how I'm going to do and mark that out. There's a couple different ways that I can do this, but I think I'm going to try and do it with cardboard. The cardboard I was using was just your standard sort of box cardboard. It's a little bit too thick and kind of not giving me what I need, so I think I'm going to use some thinner stuff next, about this thickness, maybe even some Bristol board, sort of figure that out, build everything out the way that I need it to. I just need to get some. So I probably need to run to the dollar store or look around the house and see how much more cardboard of this thickness I have. I'm not going to do that tonight though, because it is time for me to go to bed. So tomorrow we'll start playing with a little bit more cardboard. It doesn't look like I'm going to get this finished today or for this video, but we should be in a pretty good place to pick up finishing the top half of the tunnel next video. So maybe we'll just try and get the bottom half sorted out now and then do the top half sorted next one. We'll see how far I get tomorrow. Okay, so it's day 3 of working on my transmission tunnel, and I am playing a bit of arts and crafts. I'm gonna have to admit that this video is not going to be out on Friday. Might be out on Sunday, might be out next week. Everything's just taking way longer than I expected, but it's also turning out pretty good. So I grabbed some Bristol board from the dollar store, and I've drawn a couple things on it. I will explain to you what all of that is shortly. You can also see that I did use the same Bristol board to kind of redo a template for my the main part of the floor cover. So I'll show you what that looks like now. So we're looking pretty good in here now. Everything's lining up pretty well. I do need to trim just a little bit off the bottom of this to kind of get it to sit where I wanted it to, but the break is good. We've got a nice opening here. I'm going to trim probably just a little bit off of this once I finish the tunnel. But I think that, you know, it shouldn't be a big deal to sort of continue this line naturally down here and just take a little bit more off. I do have to round this out. I'm probably going to do that after I finish the cone. I also do need to trim a little bit up there. So as you can see, when I did open this up and things sunk down a little bit more, I was able to identify a couple areas that need trimming. Not a big deal. I do think that, you know, we've made some good progress, and that looks like a good floor cover so far. But we got to get a cone on there. So what I did, I measured out that cone, and then I came over to here and I kind of upscaled it, knowing that it's going to bend and some material is going to be taken up in the upscaling. So how I upscaled it was I just measured across the bottom of the opening, added about an inch or so, measured across the top, added an inch or so, same thing, added a little bit with the length as well. And then I am lucky enough that if I totally mess up this template, I can add some on there, and I can use some of the scraps and whatnot to kind of build that up. And then I've got one more sheet over there that I can work with as well. But even if this template ends up with a bunch of pieces masking tape to it, and then I just transfer it all to that good template, we'll be able to sort of do that before we transfer it over to the metal. So I'm going to cut this out, and then I'm going to bend it around a little bit, take it over to the truck, and just see how it looks and how close or how far we are from this being the cone that we need.
All right, that original piece of cardboard that I had rounded out ended up being way too small. So I'm going to show you what I did to help me be able to figure things out a little bit better.
Now I've got some round rod taped to my base panel here, just to help me figure out what size this cone needs to be. I was really struggling with trying to get it all sorted out. But let me put this in a stationary spot, and you can kind of see how this framework that I've built is sort of helping me out. So it looks pretty funky, but this was the original one that I did, where I added some space to it. And now that I've got this frame, I can really bend it to it and kind of hold it against it and see where things are way too short. So you can see if I scoot this up to kind of the end of where I need to cover, we're short down the sides. We're short at the top. We're pretty good lengthwise. We need to go a little bit taller up there, but now I kind of know, and I can push against this and sort of figure my cone out. So that's what I'm going to do next, is kind of figure out, how exactly I'm going to do this and sort of make it all work in the way that I want it to. I'm already seeing a couple of issues that I'm going to have. Here I might run out of a little bit of metal, but I think there's enough to make that work, so I might have to tighten this up a little bit. Definitely, when I'm working with the metal, whenever I get to that stage, and if I do need to tighten things up, I can, and it'll just end up a little bit taller, which won't really be the end of the world. But you can definitely see that this initial sort of cone that I drew is just way too small. What I might actually do, I'm not going to do it tonight, is I'm going to tape this in place and add some wings to it with some more Bristol board. And then trace that out, and then bring one big piece of Bristol board back, and then just see if we can kind of sneak up on it that way. But that is going to have to wait for another night because I am tired.
Okay, we're back out in the garage again, and I've changed the way I'm doing this transmission tunnel once again. With doing the cone, I was having a hard time conceptualizing how I was going to bend the cone. Probably needed a slip roller. The cardboard cutouts I was working just weren't really convincing me that it was going to work, so I have switched it to a method I saw on Instagram.
So I'm going to end up doing something that's going to be a little bit more like right angle. It's going to be kind of a, I don't know what shape this is, trapezoid maybe. But basically I've made a wire frame, and now I'm just going to go ahead and fill it in with these pieces of paper that I've got around here. You can see that I've actually cut one already. So that kind of fits on there. I know it looks really wonky because I'm reusing a piece of paper I had before that had some different marks on it, and it looks a little bit sort of helter-skelter, kind of not straight and even, but I'm just sort of figuring out how things are going to work as I go. And then what I'm going to do, say for example I've got this piece here, this obviously isn't right, I'll just tape this to the edge here, and then what I'll do when I'm done is unfold it, mark where everything needs to be bent. I'm going to do another version on this piece of paper with everything marked the way I need it to be, and then finally transfer it all to a piece of metal, and it should be able to be something that I can bend and put some welds in, and it'll kind of do exactly what I need it to be. You can also tell from this angle that I do need to do a little bit of trimming on this side just to get it even to there so that everything slides in nicely. But I think it should work out pretty well. As you can see, the center lines are kind of lining up. Again, this is sort of a bit of a wonky piece of paper with everything I got going on there. So I am going to cut out, I'm going to finish working with this kind of scrap piece, and then I'll bring this along and I'll show you how I'm going to transfer sort of one to the other. Okay, I have bent up my template here. You can see that I left a little bit of material up here because this corner wasn't perfect when I did the last one, so I do want to refine it in this stage. I also made a mistake in the video before. You'll see that I bent it actually the opposite way. So I'm going to have to figure out how to mark my bends on the flip side, so when I use my brake I'm actually bending it the right way, but I think I should be able to figure that out. So I'm going to bring the piece back. We're going to lay this on top, and we're going to see how it fits up, and then hopefully we are pretty close. With it in the truck here, you can see that I definitely do need to kind of fill in that angle a little bit better. And I think really what happened was I just didn't have this angle right on the bench. I kind of figured that was going to happen. I didn't really know what angle it's at. I don't have an angle finder. I just didn't have it kicked up enough. So I'm going to put a little bit of paper sort of in the end there so we can just refine this template. And then tomorrow we can get another piece of Bristol board and get this all nailed down. All right, I've lost track of how many days I've been spending on this, but let me show you where we are now. It's a new day. I got some new Bristol board. I've also used up a pile of Bristol board refining the piece inside the truck. So remember when I said this was done? Kind of lied. I made a bunch of modifications, mainly to accommodate better around the gas pedal. So I actually narrowed it a little bit, and I might actually end up having to kind of notch it in there, but I think I'll do that once it's sort of done, and then cut it, and then just be able to sort of bend a piece if I need to. I might not need to. It does clear pretty decently. I'll show you how much it clears after I move this out and retrace it, because it is super delicate right now because I have taped it up. You know, I did a new end on that side. I've kind of refined this. There's just a bunch of sort of fiddly stuff going on with this template that's going to make it not last very long. So let's, I'm going to recut this out of Bristol board, fold it up, and then meet you right back here in the truck. I think I've got it to a point where I can bend this out in metal. Let me just get rid of this here. I do plan to actually seam seal around where I welded it. I'm probably not going to weld it fully either. Probably just tack it in a couple spots and then seam seal it. But we'll see once I start welding, just depending on how it's going on. I really don't want to warp things too much, and I think it just might be a little bit fiddly for me to weld with kind of my skill level, but we'll see. We'll see how far I get. But I think the first step is going to be actually to get this folded out in metal and then lay it on top and see where we're at. So everything has worked out. Gas pedal clears. It just clears, but the pedal doesn't move any more than that. So I think we're pretty solid. Doesn't look too bad. It's a little asymmetrical, as I said before, but it actually works really well to clear the gas pedal. So it's time for me to set this up on my piece of metal and see if I can't bend this up the way that it looks here. Okay, so it looks like this just fits on this piece of metal, so it's really good that I spent so much time templating this out to make sure that that it'll work. I do think I'll have to do a little bit of finagling with it, but I think we're pretty good. So I'm going to try and trace this out. This Sharpie was a little bit crappy earlier, but it seems to be working now. So I think we're good. So yeah, I'm just going to trace this out and then cut it, break it, and see where we end up. It's 11 o'clock right now, so I don't know if I'll get it welded in tonight. We'll definitely have it sitting on there and just make sure that it's good enough to sort of proceed with. If it's not, I'll buy another piece of metal, but I really hope that we can get done with this one. I've got my piece cut out now. You can see the lines where I need to break it. I do have to remember I need to break it down, not up. So when I'm lining it up in the break, it might be a little bit funky for me to figure that out. It's 2 breaks, so it shouldn't be too bad. I'm going to go less than 90 for both because I do know that I'm going to need to tweak them a little bit when they're in the truck. But let's get this propped up a little bit so we can see what it looks like all said and done. I did sort of get the edges nice and clean so that I shouldn't be like cutting my hands when I'm fitting it. But I'm really excited to kind of get this bent up. So let's do that. I'm going to put the brake on the table and then I'll figure out a spot for the camera and you can watch me do that. it bent up pretty decent. I do have a little bit of massaging to do, so you can see I need to kind of clearance that a little bit more so that I can get everything to line up to weld better. It's just kind of sat in place right now. I'm just checking a few things out. I'm going to tape it into place and play with the gas pedal just to make sure that I do like it how it is, and then make my necessary adjustments. And then I think I'm just going to start tacking it in. So I think what I'm probably going to do is, obviously there's going to be a little bit of a weld there. There's going to be a weld there, a weld there, a weld up there. Same thing on the other side. And then if it's sturdy enough, then I'm going to leave it there and actually just seam seal kind of the rest of it. I'll obviously have to figure out something at the top there. I just want to make sure that it's tacked in enough that it's not going to separate, but I don't want to weld the whole length because I'm actually really worried that I'll warp it. And right now it actually looks pretty straight. So that's going to be another day. This is turning out to be like a 2-week process. But sometimes that's how it goes. I know for some of you, this is probably something super easy that I shouldn't be struggling with, but I am, and I think it'll look good once it's done. I do apologize for how long it's taking to get this thing done and this video out, but you know, like I said before, it is what it is. Sometimes things take a little bit longer. All right, we're back out here again. I've done a bunch of fiddling around and just sort of refining of the fitment of this piece. Definitely going to be some seam sealer use on this, but I think I've got it to a point where it's pretty good, or at least good enough for me to tack it and kind of see how it all lays down. Right down there is kind of one of the spots where I'm thinking that I'm gonna have to do some sealer. If I kind of get this as close as possible, tack it sort of in the middle, I think we'll be pretty good. I've got, you know, it's pretty good down there. Up there, this is a little bit flexible because it's not mounted to the firewall. I'm gonna fill up that gap, and then I'm gonna do over there. But what I really want to do right now is just kind of tack this together, and then put it in the truck and make sure that it does work, that I can get it in and out as one unit. It's actually really hard to work with in these two spots. And then once I have it tacked together, I also got to figure out how I'm going to mount this thing. So obviously I can put some holes in here, but I don't have any space up at the top there. So it might end up something, maybe I got to put some tabs on it. Not 100% sure as of yet. I do have a couple of ideas though, but the first thing I need to do is tack this together so I can start playing with it as one unit. So I'm going to put you guys somewhere and we're going to get that done. All right, so tunnel is in. Did some dirty tacks. Took me a while to figure out the right settings for this. So I'm gonna have to clean that up afterwards once it's all in. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go probably tack about every ½ inch, make sure that everything is solid, and then I'm probably going to, because I got some other material underneath, probably fold that up and then maybe do a few more tacks just to make sure the gaps are in, and then I'm gonna go over it with seam sealer. Seam sealer the outside. I mean, my floors all got seam sealer. It's going to get covered in carpet at some point, so I'm not too concerned about it. And honestly, I don't think I can weld this all in a way that's going to look super awesome, if I'm to be completely honest, and just, you know, pretty realistic about my skills. But I'm pretty happy with sort of how it all looks now. So I'm going to just tack up the top a little bit, so I can get all my angles good, and then it's time to hit this with some weld through primer, and then just continue going all through everything. I know that a lot of you would have done the weld through primer first, but I'd already marked everything and I didn't want it to move around anymore and spent a bunch of time with it. But don't worry, I'm going to get this as rust proofable as possible, and then we'll keep rolling. So this is the Dave from the intro, and we're back around at the end of the video, and I'm going to shoot the outro where I did not get the transmission tunnel completely finished, but I got it pretty far. So first thing, from the last cut, I did more cutting. This is the piece that was behind the new piece that I bent up, and I was just fighting it a lot. You can see that I did curve it to go around the firewall, and then I was trying to weld the other bits to it, and it just really wasn't working out. I wasn't super stoked on how that looked. You couldn't see it, but it was on the inside, and I knew about it. So what I did was basically remove that top portion because I realized I no longer actually need it, because I have this. And then what I am going to do, and that's why this video is going to go into part 2, is I'm actually going to put a flange on the inside. So I'll put some spot welds for a nice right angle flange that will continue from down here up, and that is how I'm going to attach it. I'm going to have to get a little bit creative on this side. It is going to have to taper away. I don't think I'll have any problems doing that. And then same thing, I'll be able to bolt it there, or if I want to use, you know, magnets, double-sided tape, whatever, I'll have a flange that continues up. And I think that's actually going to work out a lot better than what I had planned. It will also allow me to sort of fill up this gap in any way that I need to with just a straight piece that comes from there, and maybe a small sort of break in the bottom there. But I'm pretty stoked. I think I'm going to be able to fit that piece up a lot easier than what I had in before. And even if, let's say, I decide not to actually add any mounting tabs here, I think it's going to work really well. Or if I just decide to add, like, you know, one that comes off of here, comes off of there, I've got a lot more options now, and this fits a lot tighter and better. It is in great now. I also added in a notch around this piece of firewall. I'm going to put a plug in there, and that should be pretty happy. You know, really in hindsight, maybe I could have gone up higher, but then I would have run into this. I think this is all going to work really well. And like I said, this is going to be under a mat and carpet, so it's not going to be too much of an issue. And for my first transmission tunnel, I'm not too bummed about it at all. Let me hop in the driver's seat and show you how everything works. I'm in the driver's seat now, and you can see that this looks pretty well. It is, like I said, it isn't symmetrical. That's so it clears the gas pedal. So my foot's on the gas pedal now. Goes all the way down to the floor. I'm not using my whole foot on the pedal, but actually if I move my foot here, it hits this bracket up here anyway. So there's no way I was ever going to get full throttle like that. You know, I'm not going to really drive with my foot out here. I can hit full throttle here, no problem. I don't really have to worry about it. You know, if I want to, maybe I can look into adjusting the pedal, moving it over a little bit, just so that it's a bit of a different angle, but I'm not too worried about it. I think it's fine. And I think we're going to be able to drive on down the street perfectly fine with how it is right now. So no complaints here. With that, we're going to wrap this video up. I know it was a bit of a crazy journey with me sort of changing how I was going to do it a bunch of times, but I'm pretty happy with the end result now, and we'll pick up sort of finishing this off in the next video. In the next video, I want to put some mounting flanges on it, you know, get it ready, painted, all that jazz. So we'll pick that up probably next week, and then hopefully after that, I'll get my e-brake cables, and we can go back to actually getting this thing on the road. So once again, thanks for watching this video, and I'll catch you in the next video.